Indonesia is well known for its mythology, with Yogyakarta being the place where Nyi Roro Kidul first appeared. Legend has it that Nyi Roro Kidul was the lord of the southern seas, and many people hold this myth to be true. Nyi Roro Kidul is described as a beautiful woman in a green dress who lives in a palace located on the south coast. There are many versions of the origin of Nyai Roro Kidul's existence. One version that is widely known is that formerly Nyi Roro Kidul was the child of King Siliwangi VI. Well, here's the story. It is said that in the land of Java, more precisely in an area called Pajajaran, there was an ancient kingdom led by King Siliwangi VI. King Siliwangi had a penchant for hunting animals in the wilderness. One time he was busy hunting and unknowingly entered into the forest further. King Siliwangi could not find a way out of the forest. After turning around to find a way out, King Siliwangi suddenly met a beautiful woman in the forest. King Siliwangi felt relieved and immediately approached the woman. After getting acquainted, it is known that this beautiful woman has been living in the forest for a long time. The woman will accompany and show where the way out of the forest, but with the condition that King Siliwangi must stay a few days in his palace. In short, King Siliwangi agreed to these conditions and began to live a few days at the beautiful woman's palace. King Siliwangi stayed longer than the previous plan because King Siliwangi fell in love with the woman, and in the end they got married. After some time, King Siliwangi returned to his kingdom alone without his wife. Arriving at the kingdom, all the people were happy to know that the king had returned. They thought that the king had returned. They thought that the king had died because he had not been in his palace for days. King Siliwangi completed some of the work he had left while he was in the forest, until a few months passed and he began to forget the existence of his wife in the forest. One night, when King Siliwangi was fast asleep, he was suddenly startled by the sound of a baby crying. Then the king immediately got up and approached the source of the baby's voice, which turned out to be at the front door of the palace. King was confused at the baby, but he still held him. At that time of confusion, suddenly in front of King Siliwangi smoke and white light appeared. Slowly, the smoke turned into a female figure who was none other than King Siliwangi's wife. The wife said that the baby was their child, and she asked the king to take care of her like a human. Haven't had time to ask his wife much. In a blink of an eye, the wife disappeared again. King Siliwangi then brought his daughter in and named the baby Princess Kadita. Princess Kadita grew up as a beautiful and well-mannered girl. Princess Kadita's beauty sometimes reminds King Siliwangi of his wife. The king tried to find his wife in the forest, but in vain. King Siliwangi began to worry about his kingdom. He did not have a wife and son as his future successor. Then King Siliwangi asked Princess Kadita for permission that he wanted to remarry. Princess Kadita agreed to this, and finally, King Siliwangi married a noble daughter named Dewi Mutiara. After several months of marriage, Dewi Mutiara finally conceived a baby. During her pregnancy, Dewi Mutiara turned into an angry and selfish queen. All the queen's requests were always obeyed by King Siliwangi. But one day the queen asked Princess Kadita to leave the palace. Hearing this, King Siliwangi strongly opposed. Dewi Mutiara feels her affection is divided if Princess Kadita is still around. So he plans to get rid of Princess Kadita. Dewi Mutiara went to the forest and met a shaman to get rid of Princess Kadita. One night, when the princess was sleeping, suddenly there was thick smoke with a rotten smell around Princess Kadita, but the princess didn't feel it. The next day, Princess Kadita woke up and was shocked by her body, which had spots of pus. Seeing this, the king tried to treat his daughter by calling all the best healers in all over the country. But unfortunately, none of the healers who can treat the princess. King felt sad about that. In the midst of the king's despair, Dewi Mutiara proposed an evil intention to exile the princess so that the disease would not spread. Desperate, the king agreed and asked his daughter to go away from the palace. With a heavy heart, Princess Kadita left the palace and went to the forest to meditate. In the middle of her meditation, the princess heard a voice telling her to go to the south coast. The voice is known to belong to the mother or wife of King Siliwangi. Princess Kadita, who was sure of the sound, then ran towards the south coast for days. Arriving at the south coast, her mother's voice appeared again and ordered Princess Kadita to throw herself into the water. Princess Kadita then began to throw herself into the sea, and miraculously, the skin disease she suffered was instantly cured. Princess Kadita finally decided to stay at sea and build a palace and gather thousands of troops. From there, Princess Kadita was known as Nyi Roro Kidul, or the Queen of the South Coast. So that is the story of Yogyakarta folklore, the origin of Nyi Roro Kidul. The moral message and lesson that can be learned from this story is to prioritize kindness even though it is harmed, like Princess Kadita, who sacrificed herself to leave the palace for the good of her people, even though she was actually harmed by her stepmother.